Abraham Lincoln was the 16th President of the United States. He held the presidential office from 1860 to 1865. Before that, he held offices in the Illinois General Assembly and the House of Representatives. He was a lawyer, a writer, an inventor, a politician, a husband, and a father. While he may have been all of these things, the situational factors faced by Abraham Lincoln made it impossible for him to be an authentic leader. Today I'm going to summarize our readings and explain to you what an authentic leader is, what situational factors Lincoln faced, and how those factors affected his ability to be an authentic leader. In the Hartwick cases, we read 5 speeches given by President Lincoln. The first, called The Perpetuation of Our Political Institutions, outlines Lincoln's frustrations with the mob activity in Mississippi and St. Louis at the time. He talks about hangings and burnings of innocent men. He discussed mob law and its effects on law-abiding citizens. In this speech, he stresses that all citizens must follow all laws, even the bad ones. Otherwise, the people are dishonoring their ancestors. The second speech we read, called the Temperance Address, was delivered in February of 1842 before the Springfield, Washington Temperance Society in response to the success of the temperance movement. For those of you who may not know, the temperance movement was an anti-alcohol movement that began in the early 19th century. Lincoln's speech states that the temperance movement had been in progress for nearly 20 years at the time that this speech was given. Lincoln was slightly controversial during this speech because he stood up for those with alcohol addictions. The third speech we read, called House Divided, is one of Lincoln's most famous speeches. It was given in Springfield, Illinois, upon Lincoln accepting the Illinois Republican Party's nomination as senator. During this speech, Lincoln expresses his thoughts on a half-free, half-slave country. He states, "I believe this government cannot endure permanently half-slave and half-free." He continues to state that it will become all one thing or all another. Lincoln also speaks against the Kansas-Nebraska Act and the Dred Scott decision. Fourth, we read the Gettysburg Address. A rather short speech was given at the official dedication of the cemetery of Gettysburg. At this speech, Lincoln highlighted the importance of human equality as it is stated in the Declaration of Independence. He also shows his gratitude to the men that sacrificed their lives to give a new birth of freedom. Finally, we read Lincoln's second inaugural address, where he is accepting his second term in office. During this speech, Lincoln claims that he is dedicated to saving the Union without war and seeks to unite the American people by interpreting the war as a divine judgment upon both sides of the war. He takes a gentle, almost biblical approach to this speech. The debate statement I am defending today is the situational factors faced by Abraham Lincoln made it impossible for him to be an authentic leader. To start, I'm going to explain what authentic leadership is and discuss the approaches one can take to achieve authentic leadership. While there is no singular definition of authentic leadership, it can be described as an honest and true way of leading. It focuses on whether leadership is genuine and real. As the name implies, authentic leadership is about the authenticity of leaders and their leadership. According to Northouse, there are 2 approaches to authentic leadership. The first is the practical approach. This approach was created for those who are interested in a how-to steps to becoming an authentic leader. This approach takes on the trait approach and states that there are 5 characteristics that an authentic leader embodies. These characteristics are purpose, values, relationships, self-discipline, and heart. The second approach to authentic leadership is a theoretical approach. This approach is the result of the rising societal upheaval and instability in the United States. This is the approach that I'll be focusing on for my debate, and thus will go into greater detail with this approach. The theoretical approach contains 4 components and 3 factors that influence authentic leadership. The 4 components are self-awareness, internalized moral perspective, balanced processing, and relational transparency. The 3 factors that influence authentic leadership are positive psychological capacities, moral reasoning, and critical life events. I will now go into detail of these components and factors. Self-awareness refers to the personal insights of a leader. It includes understanding one's strengths and weaknesses and the impact they have on others. According to Northouse, self-awareness includes reflecting on one's core values, identity, emotions, motives, and goals. and coming to grips with who you really are at the deepest level. Other people see leaders who have greater self-awareness as more authentic. Moving on, internalized moral perspective refers to the self-regulatory process where an individual lets their moral standards lead their behavior rather than letting outside pressures control them. Someone with internalized moral perspective is seen as more authentic because they live by what they believe. Now to balanced processing. Balanced processing is another self-regulatory behavior. According to Northouse, it refers to an individual's ability to analyze information objectively and explore other people's opinions before making a decision. Leaders with balanced processing are more authentic because they view both sides of the story and they are unbiased when making decisions. Lastly, relational transparency. This term means being open and honest with others, displaying one's true self. One must be open about the good and the bad things about themselves in order to portray relational transparency. Leaders with relational transparency are more authentic because they build trust with their followers. The three factors that influence authentic leadership are just as important as the components of authentic leadership. Positive psychological attributes such as confidence, hope, optimism, and resilience enhances a leader's capacity to develop the components of authentic leadership I just discussed. Moral reasoning is the capacity to make ethical decisions about issues of right or wrong and good or bad. It allows leaders to be selfless and do what's right for the greater good. The last of the three factors that influence authentic leadership is critical life events. These are events that shape people's lives. They can be positive or negative, but either way they make a difference in the leader's life. By understanding their own life experiences, leaders become more authentic. Abraham Lincoln faced at least two situational factors that made it impossible for him to be an authentic leader. These two factors are the Civil War and his mental health. When Abraham Lincoln took the presidential office for his first term, the year was 1860. The Civil War started the very next year in 1861 and ended in 1865, almost identical to the years that Lincoln was in office. This means Abraham Lincoln dealt with the issues of the Civil War for his entire presidency. The Civil War and the politics surrounding it forced Lincoln to make some decisions that were less than authentic. One example can be seen when Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus. The writ of habeas corpus is a constitutional privilege that states a person must be charged with a specific crime before being arrested or held in custody. Lincoln suspended this privilege in April of 1861. Chief Justice Roger B. Taney stated that only Congress had the power to suspend the writ, and accused Lincoln of overstepping his constitutional limits. This decision also conflicts with Lincoln's own solution to protecting the government. During the perpetuation of our political institutions, he states, talking about the government, how should we fortify it? The answer is simple. Let every American, every lover of liberty, every well-wisher to his posterity, swear by the blood of the Revolution never to violate in the least particular the laws of this country, and never tolerate their violation by others. He continues to say, when I so pressingly urge a strict observance of all the laws, let me not be understood as saying that there are no bad laws. Although bad laws exist, they should be repealed as soon as possible. Still, while they continue in force, for the sake of example, they should be religiously observed. It is clear to see that President Lincoln contradicted himself when suspending the writ of habeas corpus. It is like he's saying every law should be followed except this one. He used his power in favor of the Union and his own personal goals. Lastly, Lincoln had mental health issues that made it impossible for him to be an authentic leader. As stated earlier, positive psychological attributes and critical life events affect one's ability to be an authentic leader. Lincoln faced many negative critical life events. Even before becoming president, Lincoln faced the death of his mother, sister, father, son, and a love interest. He had 2 broken engagements and was turned down for both a seat in Congress and as U.S. Senator. With these events come great sadness for Lincoln because he had clinical depression. Modern clinicians using a standard diagnostic criterion uniformly agree that Lincoln had undiagnosed clinical depression. His companions described him as extremely melancholy, and even Lincoln admits to being the most miserable man living. However, Lincoln tried to hide his sadness through humor. While many could see through his act, Lincoln wasn't being honest about his disease. An authentic leader is honest about the good and bad in life. Lincoln was pretending to be something he was not. Now that you know some of the situational factors Lincoln faced that made it impossible for him to be an authentic leader, I encourage you to look for more reasons and share them with me. Thank you.